Okay, so I said that we would concentrate on another bit of form. So we're going to write these notes down the side on this second page. We've done the rhythm, we've talked about the rhyme, and now we're going to look at the other part of form, which is the type of poem. And I've just realized you can't see that. The type of poem. This is a ballad. A ballad is a song. It is a story told as a song with a refrain. What other poem has a refrain? Good answer. There's a refrain at the end of quite a lot of our poems, particularly at the end of Exposure. But this is an actual ballad, and a ballad was meant to sound like a song. Okay? It has medieval roots. Medieval roots. Okay? And it was meant to help memory. Okay? You would put it as a song, and it would help you to remember the way that the words were, so that you could sing it again and again. It was part of the way that folklore was passed down through generations. Okay? And the main point is that it says we should never forget this. Okay? We should never forget it because it's written as a ballad. All right? That's basically where I'm going with this. So why shouldn't we forget it? One reason is because we need to view this as a cautionary tale to avoid doing the same thing again and having soldiers follow leaders blindly. Okay, and I put soldiers follow blind orders. It could be more than a cautionary tale, and it could be that heroes should be remembered. So by using this type of a poem as a ballad, we've either got it as something we have to remember, but why should we remember it? Should we remember it because it's a cautionary tale, or should we remember it because heroes should be remembered? You've got two different viewpoints here, which you could present when you deal with this as a type of poem. And the way that you could bring that up about being a ballad is when you talk about the refrain. This is the fourth stanza now, and we've got this idea of it being 600. So it's not only a metonymy structure in the ballad, of the refrain of the ballad every time. It's also going to really drive it home in our memories that 600 people suffered and were heroes for doing something crazy. All right? And there's a lot of sensory language in these middle paragraphs now, so that we will remember the pain and the suffering. I'd like you to consider the anaphora. I said that would be there, and I'd like you to consider the rhymes, okay? So we've got the flashed and the flashed for anaphora, but there's no point in just going, yes, I found anaphora, full stop, let's move on. So I don't want you to say, by the way, there's anaphora in every stanza, and each anaphora means that it speeds us up and it's horrendous, okay? They might slightly work differently. This anaphora is emphatic. All right? It's emphasizing. And it's here for emphasis. What is emphasis? What is being emphasized? Flashed all their sabres bare, which is a type of sword. Flashed as they turned in air, sabring the gunners there, charging an army while all the world wondered. plunged in the battery smoke, right through the line they broke. Cossack and Russian reeled from the sabre stroke, shattered and sundered. Then they wrote back, but not the 600. You can hear that dactylic dimeter really strongly here, can't you? Flashed all their sabres bare, flashed as they turned in air. Okay, you can see that really strongly working with the anaphora, and you're really getting this sensory experience. It's a feeling and a sound. Okay, and there's a bit of a strange bit of rhyme scheme again. We've got air bear rhyming and there rhyming, but the while and the wondered do not. Then we've got the smoke broken stroke. All right, you've got a wondered and sundered maybe. So this wondered and this while, you're going to say, ah yes, soap aims. You got some alliteration in there. And the alliteration is focusing all of our attention on this word wondered. Okay? Because it's the last word in the alliterative section. And this is a positive and a negative word. All right, so I'm going to put that in to remind myself. So both a positive and a negative. And this is where we start talking about the tone. Because if you remember, we questioned, is it going to be propaganda? Is it going to be a factual account? Are we talking about heroes, or are we talking about just a war situation? So if we're looking about it as being a negative view, when you wonder, you're wondering with serious questions in your mind. Okay? So you've got the idea of there being questions, the orders, and the following the orders. That is very subtly done. So we've got the positive and the negative interpretation, and the fact that it can be very subtly a negative, which causes us to question whether they ever should have followed it. Drawn attention by the W from the alliteration. But there is a positive side, so it's really easy to say, oh no, it's not that subtle. Actually, what he was is, when you wonder, you were in awe and you were amazed. So they could be amazed at the heroism of the soldiers. All right, and you could see it as both. Quite easily see it as both. And realistically, both the ballad with never forgetting and both the use of this alliteration pointing to the word wondered is almost a subliminal message. It's a subtle, almost subliminal. Sorry, that's my child trying to get my attention. Okay? It's almost a subliminal message, so we have to look very closely. All right. So we've got wondered. Now, that is a very active word. It's really drawing our attention from the alliteration, and it rhymes with blundered, so you could say, oh, well, maybe we're really drawing attention to the fact that it blundered. But I'd like to tell you something that's just very, very interesting. Okay? Using the word wondered, I will spell it here in its normal. It really draws attention to the aired. And a lot of words in this draw attention to the aired. So what they do is, what does the word aired mean? If you spell it like this, it means made a mistake. Okay? So are we drawing attention to the fact that this whole thing is a one big mistake? You've got wondered, you've got blundered, don't you? You also have shattered and sundered. All of these possibly drawing attention to this fact that there is an error of judgment, okay? So that's why I've been marking all these words, because you can say the vast quantity of the words with this ending draws attention to the ending, because they've used an apostrophe to make it a very subtle and subliminal message that this is actually not a poem about a factual battle. This is a poem which is supposed to be promoting the heroism, and it's a bit of propaganda, but it's actually questioning very subtly what why they've been allowed to make this error. Okay, so we need to add that here. Okay, we desperately need to add that here on the top, as this is questioning throughout the poem the error and blunder, but very subtly. And you would mention that in your thesis statement if you were willing to back it up with all of the information you've got from the quotations. So, remember, we have to pick our quotations very judiciously. So we don't just grab everything and start talking about it, because you won't have time, and that's not a judicious use. So let's go quickly to the end, and then we will discuss where our best quotations are, and therefore what we can focus on before we do anything else to talk about all this great tonal orange stuff. Okay? Oh, now I got a dog in here. And let's lose the next to last, the penultimate stanza. Cannon to right of them, cannon to left of them, cannon behind them, volleyed and thundered, stormed at with shot and shell. Some horse and hero fell. They that had fought so well came through the jaws of death, back from the mouth of hell. All that was left of them, left of 600. A very effective technique he's used here twice in a row, which is structural, is a repetition here, and he uses it again here. That repetition that he's doing, yeah, so he does it, now we've pointed it, now we have to use it. Now that we've pointed to it, why is he using that? We would only ever repeat ourselves, like I repeat myself in class, for emphasis, so that you cannot forget. Okay? We do not want, according to Tennyson, ever anyone to forget that they shouldn't have gone, and that all that is left is a few out of the 600. In this, you could pick out anaphora, which is really easy, but unless you're willing to talk about it, there's no point. You would then pick out some great little thundered, stormed, volleyed, okay? You could talk about being jaws of death, and there's real emphasis with the semantic field of death and hell and people dying. So I'll put that in so that you can mark that if you want to. Okay, but I see no point in marking everything in the poem without now knowing what to pick on. Okay? Notice this repetition here at the ends. It's the only ones that really stand out. Okay? It really is a lot of the word of them. Alright? So we are really very focused on the fact that these are 600 soldiers. Okay? And look how it's repeating the word left. Okay? We've done right, we've done left, we've done behind, and then we're really focusing on left. Now you could say it's all that's left. It means the remainders. Okay? And we've got our remains poem. But you could also say that it's the opposite of right. And it's wrong. It's a very, very interesting way of looking at it. The opposite of right is wrong. Therefore, it's what's left. All we're left with is this wrong thing that's happened. Okay? The wrong result, which is the death of soldiers for no reason. All right? You can see if they won the war and everybody was saved, they would be heroes for saving it. But they haven't. All they did was randomly get killed for no reason. And then we move to the last stanza. You can immediately see the length is different, and that focuses your attention. So you can say structurally, length. So therefore, more focus on the ending. Okay? Again, there is no ending rhyming couplets. He's not doing that in this form. It's the form of a ballad, so you're still keeping with the refrain. So our eyes jump. Our eyes jump to two areas. Let me read it first. When can their glory fade? Oh, the wild charge they made. All the world wondered. Honor the charge they made. Honor the light brigade. Noble 600. Now my mind goes immediately. I notice the juxtaposition of the exclamation marks, which we haven't seen yet, and the question marks. So you're saying it's you causing us to question straight away. But your question is about when we're going to forget. It's all about remembering, okay? So drawing attention with this structure, the way that there are exclamation marks, to the heroism. Never forget. Never forget. It's all glory and honor, okay? Then we've got this anaphora with the honor. But there's no point just saying, oh yes, there's anaphora, because we know there's anaphora. It's been in every single stanza. Therefore, use of this is only so good as we need to talk about it. So I'd like to say, realistically, if you're going to talk about the opening with the anaphora, you should probably talk about the closing. In the opening, we have half a league, half a league, half a league onward. And in the end, we have honor the charge they made, honor the light brigade, noble 600. Okay? And the focus is again on the first word. With this anaphora. Okay? And that's what we're supposed to be doing here. Okay, right, fine. It is a poem that we will have as propaganda honoring the wonderful actions. We are supposed to then honor them, okay? But we've got this alliteration working against it. We've got them saying that it's a wild charge and that all the world wondered. You see, calling something a wild charge, that's not very complimentary. So there's a question on how this is going to be taken. Questioning the sense of the charge. Is it the mental processes behind? Because something that's wild is out of control, and therefore you're honoring their heroism whilst at the same time questioning the leaders, as leaving them to themselves. The leaders are out of control. They've not really controlled the situation well. And that W alliterative moves us into the second time we see the word wondered. And again, we have the idea of, have they made a mistake? Okay, and we have the world wondering. All right, they are amazed at the heroism of the soldiers. There's the positive and the negative. And bringing this back again, this repetition, he cannot leave the poem without questioning. Remember, the questioning or being amazed, it's the negative versus the positive. He cannot leave the poem without questioning the errors that were made. It would be very easy to miss that, though, because of the positive spin you can use on the fact that they wondered, therefore they won. Okay? This was his intention, one can argue. Okay? It was his intention to follow his patriotic duty and honour the Light Brigade. That was his job as the Poet Laureate. However, he questions then, right at the end, he questions. Is it a patriotic duty to blindly follow leaders, or should you be allowed or permitted to question them? And therefore this poem uses a lot of words to do with questioning. Okay, so his public persona of the Poet Laureate says that this is a heroic, memorable charge. Okay, and you've got the fact that it's a ballad, and you've got the repetition and the anaphora, and you've got the sound from the dactylic diameter and the sound from the anaphora, creating the idea of hoofbeats, and there's a sound, okay, making this amazing. All part of the ballad, with the repetition of the fact that there was only 600. That's his public persona, whereas his private thoughts, which he works in subtly, all right, are that he must question everything about jingoistic, remember that word, attitudes to patriotism. Okay. Right, now I said I'd show you what the best sources of your quotations are. So if you're going to talk about this poem, focus. Remember the FOSS method? So you've got the start, which you need to talk about these, where you can bring in the form and the structure and the dactylic and the anaphora. Then you've got to move to the here, okay? And you've got to focus on the do and the die. So it really starts you questioning, and I would actually extend that to here, because then you get to talk about blundered, all right? So he's affected by it. You bring in the context of the news report, the emphasis that he cannot do everything straight out. He has to be very subtle, and that there was going to be a terrible outcome. I would totally skip this, although it's very useful. It's just going to take time to talk about it, and you'll need the time to focus on the anaphora and the other really important part to do with wondering. So you can talk about this bit to do with the wondering. It really questions now. And you should have already talked about it being a ballad, and therefore there is this wonderful repetition. So you could then mention here that all that is left then is them, those leftovers, and that this terrible semantic field combined with the fact that there are only a few left, repetition, so they died, death, okay? And then you've got this final stanza here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 main parts. All right, you can do that in an exam. You would start at the opening and you would end at the closing. All right, FOSS way. Form, opening, so that's F-O. Then we hit the SOAP aims. Then we make sure we've hit structure, and then we hit the ending. So we've hit the beginning, and then when we write about the ending, as I've told somebody this week, the ending, because it causes us to question, okay, the questions that we are left with at the end take us straight back to the beginning. And we then would talk about our thesis right from the beginning. Is this a factual episode? Is it just a heroic ballad? Or is he asking us very subtly, because we can't forget the words as he's written it as a ballad, are we then causing ourselves, every time we listen to it repeated, or we think about the words because we can't forget them, they're so memorable, or is it making us question? And so ever so subtly we've remembered. Now this is one of his most famous poems. It's his most quoted poem. Almost everyone has heard of this Crimean War because of this poem. It caused the publishing of this poem after, a few days after William Howard Russell's news report, caused Florence Nightingale to leave and go out and try and save soldiers as a nurse. And it also caused Mary Seacole to leave and go and try and save soldiers from the Caribbean. And you can link this then to the John Agard poem, Checking Army History, where he brings up the fact that our white country is then wiping out the black history of Mary Seacole going and only focusing on Florence Nightingale going, and making it sound like only Florence went, but actually others went, including Mary Seacole. I don't know if that's how I'd approach it in an exam, but you could do. And I'm going to leave it there for today, and we'll finish on Friday thinking about how we're going to use this poem. Well done, everyone, today. Well done.